There are 21 to 30 million people that are enslaved today, and this includes men, children, and women. In the United States today, there are over 60,000 victims of human trafficking. Oklahoma and Texas are two of the main states that are prominent in human trafficking. Although it's all over the United States, it's also a huge international problem also. In India and Nepal, there are brick kilns that people are forced to work in temperatures of approximately 130 degrees. Men, women, and children, and entire families, in fact, are cloaked in heavy dust and mechanically stack bricks on their heads. Hard labor is one of the main areas of human trafficking that also leads back to the United States. Many people have the reality of working on farms with no hope of leaving. These people do not represent just a class of poorly paid employees, but they work at jobs that they might not like, They exist specifically to work and are unable to leave. Another form of forced labor is the dyeing of fabrics. The dye of the black hands in this picture are of the father, while the blue and red are of his sons. They mix dye in these big barrels and they are submerged into the silk into liquid up to their elbows. But the dye is also toxic. People are forced to work in circumstances that could hurt their health for the rest of their lives. 68% of human trafficking is labor to support the cheap goods we use every day, and people are forced into making the goods for other countries with little to no pay, with working countless hours. Mining is another area that is forced upon people to work with almost no pay and work hours in mines with almost no ventilation and breathing air that can hurt their health drastically. Men work all day for almost nothing but the promise of a life of hard labor and the promise of health issues in the end. Mining is a huge issue in Africa, but although it is in Africa, it's so prominent in Japan. Through the health issues that the Japanese have seen, over 54 people that worked in these mines say that they demand compensation for what has been done to them. Mining is a main factor in modern day slavery that needs to be drastically paid attention to and brought to justice. This photo may seem simple, but coffee is a drink that people across the globe love and they always usually want daily. As coffee may seem like one of the best parts of a person's day when they get to drink it, people often never think about where their coffee is coming from and the farmers that have to work countless hours to just produce the beans so that they can come to America. Coffee farmers get paid almost nothing to farm their lands and produce coffee beans that are shipped across nations. Ethiopia and other parts of Africa have farmers that are forced to leave their lands because people are not willing to pay fair prices for the beans that they harvest. Among men, women are some of the main targets in modern day slavery. These women here are forced to carry mined goods for miles some days and never know if payment will come for their work or not. Walking with baskets and heavy materials on their heads for miles also promotes serious health issues in their future. Like these women, one of the other prominent areas that women and children are forced to work with almost no payment and work endless hours is in factories making clothes and other products for people across the globe. These women often get no breaks throughout their day, and they may be punished if they try and take one. Most of these factories look like they may never end, and with all of the women sitting at the tables together. Working all day is also a health hazard to these women, and as they need time for breaks and to eat. Children can also be forced to work in some of these factories that benefit everyone across the globe but the people that have to work in them. Looking across the globe, there is a piece of art that is done in the United Kingdom that's showing the worldwide issue of human trafficking and forced labor. People have noticed this issue, but getting people to understand just how drastic this issue is throughout the world is something that is harder said than done. People may see the issue but don't yet know how to go about making the change. Photo may be a simple photo of the world, but it also represents just how widespread that modern day slavery can reach the whole world. People need to recognize just how big this issue is and focus on helping to find a cure, as this problem leads to them locally as well. Local scale in Africa and Asia, children are being forced into war and being child soldiers, and these children are forced to kill people when they should be in school and are looking forward to the rest of their lives, but they are burdened with the fact of being a child soldier for so long. Most people think that modern day slavery is something that does not affect them personally if it's not in the town that they live in. Yet it is everywhere and much closer than people initially think. Just this week in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there have been 3 cases of women trying to be abducted. The logo for a movement called Dressember. This movement is where girls wear dresses every day of December to promote the issue of sex trafficking and the ways that it can prevent it. This movement stands to raise awareness and is hopeful in getting the word about sex trafficking out so it is no longer a worldwide issue. As the reality for many young girls is being sold into trafficking, girls can grow up in this lifestyle with no hope of ever getting out. This issue is so huge that it can never be stopped in just a short amount of time. This is why awareness needs to be raised throughout the world so people can come together and focus on ideas that will get to the top of stopping this issue. In September, there was a rally where women raised the drastic issue of slavery and trafficking and brought this issue to life. This shows how women are seeing this issue and taking over and wanting to find ways to end this tragedy of sexual trafficking. Modern day slavery affects so many people and places in the world today, and as there is not going to be a solution to this problem overnight, there are still ways to raise awareness of this issue. People are not property and should never be sold or forced to work in ways that seem to make them feel that way. I chose the topic of modern day slavery because it is a huge issue in the world today and it's such a worldwide spread issue. And people need to see the huge issue that it is and all that comes with it through sexual trafficking and the hard labor that people are put through in these situations, whether it is working in kilns and creating bricks, or in a dye factory, or in factories making clothes for different countries. And I just wanted to bring a light to the subject of modern day slavery because so many women and children and even men are affected by this huge issue, and it has been going on forever. When I say forever, I don't mean, I guess, literally forever because it is a topic of modern day slavery, but slavery has changed over time. And I think the context of it has changed into focusing on one group or a minority of people, and it's changed to affecting so many different people across the globe. And I don't want that to be a factor in the future for people. So if we can raise awareness and get to a spot with new ideas and people creating ways to prevent it, then I think we will find a way to end it someday. And I think the way that this subject relates to the broader spectrum of the class is we talked about extremism and Islam. And I think that the issue of modern day slavery can be an issue of extremism and the people that have these slaves and they're not paying them or they make them work for long, long days and they're just not being treated as humans. They're being treated as property in certain ways. So I think that leads to extremism in a lot of ways.